Hey, what do you say, ladies and gentlemen? Dan and I are excited to introduce our Buy Me a Coffee page. We've had a lot of listeners reach out and say, hey there, bub, we really appreciate what you do and want to support the show. Well, here's one way to do that without big corporations taking, 30% of the cut of your generosity. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/BigBlueBanter and chip in if you'd like to support us directly. Every contribution means a lot, and it helps keep the show going strong. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening, and have a lovely day.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Falato. And my first question for you today, Nick, is do you understand the question, my friend? Do you understand the question?
Dude, I mean, it's a low-hanging fruit for sure, but the first question you were going to ask me, I was going to prompt it by saying, I understand your question, Dan. And then you just threw it out there. And I was like, yes, well, let's see if I understand the question. What is the question, Dan? Because it didn't seem like Joe Schoen wanted to answer many of the questions that were levied at him. So his retort was, I understand your question. Basically, like, I understand you guys all think I should lose my job. Yeah. But I'm going to try to just get out of here alive without losing it like Joe Judge did a few years back.
And for the most part, he didn't have that type of breakdown. He definitely seemed nervous. He definitely seemed rushed in his speaking. And to me, the question I have for you is, did you get the same impression I did? Because I tweeted about this after the presser. My impression was he did not sound like a guy who feels very confident that he's going to be back as GM.
Yeah, I got that same exact impression. And I wasn't 100% sure if it was that or if it was possibly him just being very nervous because he knew it was going to be contentious and he didn't want to step on any toes and didn't want to say the wrong thing. But at the end of the day, I do not think it's certain that he's going to be back whatsoever. And this gets us to probably the broader point of this podcast, Dan. Is John Mara's decision going to be based on these final freaking 4 games?
Well, that's the scary part that I want.
That's ridiculous, bro.
Yeah. Well, so this is the scary part that, somebody DM me like I better be getting an epic Dan rant. And just for the record, Dan rants are natural. They don't come planned. I can't come into this thing like I'm going to rant. They're just me losing my mind and short circuiting in that moment. And that's just how I am as a human being. I have very little control over my emotions. And I think everyone who listens to this show and has watched the show can recognize that.
I feel like you're like a Super Smash Brothers character, right? Like you get enough hit points and then you develop, like you start building momentum towards the final explosion that is the Dan rant.
Yeah, it's not something that can be planned though. Like exactly, like even in that game, you got to build up toward it. This was definitely worthy of me ranting. I had a small rant on Twitter. It doesn't seem, I feel like I'm in a good mood now. I don't think it's going to come out of me. We'll see as we get into it. And I do want to get into some other takeaways I had from the presser, but this is easily the most scary development post-presser, and it's from Ian O'Connor, who Dan Duggan, who I think is one of, if not the best on the Giant beat, said, pay attention to what Ian O'Connor says. He was locked in with the entire Dable saga when he was fired, if he was going to get fired. And Ian O'Connor said, Joe Schoen confirmed he will be evaluated again after the season. That is something Schoen said to the presser. And O'Connor said, nothing he said today makes me think that evaluation will be a very pleasant one. But he said it would be a very good idea for his Giants to finish 3-1 against these in the rest of the season. Now, let me just update the fans on what that would mean in the reality, not in the Giants' reality. The Giants live in their own reality. The reality the Giants live in is a reality that says to them, oh, my God, Joe Judge beat Brandon Allen down the stretch one. Did you see that win against Brandon? He figured out Russell Wilson. Oh, my. Joe Judge, how did you finish the 2020 season? 4-5. Oh, my God. Things are going to be so good in 2021. No, they weren't, dumbass. You don't beat bad teams down the stretch run and carry any of that momentum over. And we should have learned that lesson in 2020 to 2021. If we don't learn that lesson, then we deserve all the bad that comes to us. But I don't care about what we deserve, Nick. I know that you and I deserve better, and I know the fans deserve better. I don't care what they deserve, the owners who are so stupid that they can't see the forest of the trees and understand that going 3-1 down the stretch against Minnesota, Washington, and Vegas means nothing for your future. And it means nothing for the job that Joe Schoen did. Those teams have a combined 7-27 record. 7-27. If you win all 3 games against those shit teams, you did nothing. You learned nothing, and you are doing nothing for our future. So that type of logic, Nick, is the reason why the Giants have lost more games, in my opinion, than any team, or that in my opinion, that's the reason, since 2023. It's that type of thinking. And we lost Nick for the show. He just couldn't take it anymore. And I
had to get out of it, man. Emotionally, I was verklempt. I was like, I need to leave.
I couldn't take it anymore myself. Like, it's this type of logic, dude, which is why we are such a pathetic up franchise. And I'm sorry to curse, but it had to be done. Like, you don't beat 3 teams that are combined 7-27 and be like, good job, Joe, you proved yourself. There's nothing to prove at this point. Going 3-1 against those teams and then losing to Dallas means nothing.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. And I can't believe that this is actually being weighed into it, right? Like, well, you know, if Mike Kafka and the coaching staff, if they win these games, then we're going to bring back Joe Schoen, because Joe Schoen obviously did a good enough job to win a bunch of meaningless games down the stretch of a season. Like, it's asinine to think that could actually be the logic used by billionaire owners of the New York Giants. That is horrendous. That is a horrendous way to run this ship. I couldn't even imagine it. I hope that it's some sort of comical joke. It's obviously not, but
no.
If that happens, man, like, I don't really know a situation where the Giants fan base is going to be happy at all if Joe Schoen comes back now. Like, they could win these. It doesn't matter.
Did you see the comment section during his presser on Giants.com?
Yes, I did. I was in the comment section during that pressure. Okay. Yeah. It was wild. It was just filled with fire Joe Schoen. Like, dude, we're 4 years into this.
Yeah.
The Giants have 2 wins right now, and it's week 14. 2 wins. The Giants are in
no like 5-25 over the last 30 games or something insane like that.
And all of these decisions, man, like everything under Joe Schoen since 2022. So let's discard since 2023. Everything under Joe Schoen has been an abject disaster, dude. It has been Murphy's Law. Every decision that he has made, the exact opposite of that decision ended up transpiring to bite the Giants in the ass. Like, none of these decisions really worked out for the New York Giants. Man, look around the league. Look what's going on with Leonard Williams and Xavier McKinney and Julian Love and a lot of these players that the Giants could have brought back, some of them for relatively cheap, like a guy like Julian Love, and they're having good seasons in these other places. And then the Giants, the people that they bring in to fill it, like Javon Holland, you give him a hefty contract. Javon Holland is not playing well. Javon Holland is not playing good football for the Giants, and I think his critiques of the defense last week, they were valid critiques, but that doesn't change the fact that he's not playing well. Tyler Nubin is in way over his head. People are regressing. Yes, I think the coaching staff is not developing, but I also believe the roster is devoid of legit talent. And that is a big problem for whoever the coaching staff is. That doesn't mean the roster doesn't have stars on the team. And I do think that there are building blocks. Like when Joe Schoen was going over like Andrew Tomlin, he's not wrong with a lot of that, but still the depth of this roster is not there. It's not there to compete at a consistent level. It shouldn't be, wow, Michael McFadden got hurt and then your entire defense implodes. Like, you shouldn't be in a position that happens, let alone if Dexter Lawrence goes down, you have to change everything to mold your defensive personnel around a certain identity because there's no depth in the trenches. It's inexcusable at this point.
It is, but it's also like, to me, it's almost like a lesson in human psychology for where the Giants are at from an ownership standpoint. The fact that they believe that if Joe Schoen goes 3-1 down the stretch run, he has a much better chance to keep his job than if he doesn't, is such a good example of how much they've lost the plot of what this thing is supposed to be about. This thing is supposed to be about sustained success and winning Super Bowls, right? And when they decided that Joe Judge winning those games down the stretch run against those shit backup quarterbacks actually mattered, they lost the plot. And if they decide that winning these 3 games against those teams combined for 7-27 is worth anything to this franchise, they've again lost the plot. And I think, unfortunately for us, Nick, that plot is so far gone for them that they're going to be going down a path of, we need to do everything we can to get back to an 8-9 win team. And if you want to do everything you can to get back to an 8-9 win team, you're not going to consider someone like Chris Shula. You're not going to consider someone like Clint Kubiak. You're going to instead consider these guys that have, quote unquote, done it before with entirely different rosters that don't translate to the next season. And, you know, that's not the best way to go about this thing. We're not striving to be some 8-win team. I know right now it'd feel good for Mara if we could go 7-11 in a season, or, you know, 8-9 in a season, or 7-10 in a season, or 8-9 in a season. But that doesn't feel good to me, man.
It doesn't. And I want to make one distinction. Look, I don't think this situation is necessarily akin to what happened in 2020 with Joe Judge. Joe Judge was a rookie head coach. Yeah. And the Giants were also pushing for the playoffs. And I get it. Look, dude,
No. Let's not say that. Pushing for the playoffs was just,
but they were.
But
they
not
legit.
Fair. That's not fair, though.
But it is fair because they were.
Not to me.
I mean, but they
They were
were.
pushing
You
to
can
win
live
their
in
they were pushing to win their division with
that was
7
a shit.
total
That
wins.
was a shit division, but they still
Yeah,
were
that's not
winning.
a good
They were
team.
still beating the opponents on their. They were still beating the opponents on their schedule in a attempt to make the playoffs. Like that was meaningful football, even though we knew that the team was not nearly as good as it needed to be. It was still meaningful football well into December, up until the last week. We had 2 wins right now, Dan. Like these 2 situations
I
aren't
see
even
what you're
close to
saying.
being similar.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but and you're making a great point there. But
And
my
I think I know
point
where
is
you're.
not about like
Yeah.
that. My point is more about like what's the end goal here?
Yes.
The end goal
And
is
I
to
agree with
become
that.
a
Yes.
winning franchise, and a winning franchise isn't a franchise in my mind, at least. Like I wouldn't consider, for example, I wouldn't consider what the Steelers have toiled away to be a winning franchise. I consider them to be a not losing franchise, which is
Yes.
one goal to get to. That, and some may say, "Oh, I want the Giants to take baby steps. First, get to the point of being a not losing franchise, then get to the point of being a winning franchise." Why the hell do I have to want that? The Bears turned it around in 1 year. They're a winning franchise now at 9-3. The Patriots turned around in 1 year. They're a winning franchise at currently at or 10-2, whatever those 2 teams are, 10-3 and 10-2. I don't need to strive for 8-8. I don't want that. I will never be about that. And that's not something, I think that's something that Mara does believe has merit and value, because it means fans are still going to the games potentially. It means that we're not this laughing stock. It means that we don't have fans showing up in the comments section saying all they need to say about Joe Schoen. But to us, that, or to me at least, that's not something that I strive for.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we're talking about 2 different things here, but I'm just saying, like from the 2020 standpoint, I don't look at the New York Giants in 2020 and be like, oh, that was a great season. The Giants sucked. The NFC East sucked, but it's just different than like right now. It's like, oh my gosh, like, oh my God, we got to freaking watch this tape. We got to do this.
Yeah.
This team's dejected. They've been out of it. They were the first team eliminated from the playoffs.
Saying.
We're
Yeah.
4 years into this, right? Like you said, baby steps for Joe. Like if this baby steps, and the Joe Schoen tenure has been freaking Benjamin Button, because they went to the playoffs and they just deteriorated into a freaking infant at this point. We're an embryo right now. Okay. Like this is terrible stuff. This is inexcusable. 4 years in, I don't understand how many lives, right? That like a freaking cat. Like you have 9 lives here. Like how many times can you sit there and sell to ownership? Oh, well, we're close. We just need this.
Right.
Oh, okay. You got rid of the quarterback. Oh, well, you know what? We just need another head coach. Okay, got rid of the head coach. Oh, you need another defense coordinator. You got rid of the defense coordinator. And then and you look at the product out there, and it's like no one can even freaking make a tackle. You have one player, Dan, on the defense that is not on the front, not including the edges and the defensive linemen, who hits with any violence, and that's Drew Phillips. And Drew Phillips has his warts. I get it. And we'll talk about this on the film review, but that's one freaking player on the entire defense. So like Bobby Okereke, he can, but he is athletically limited. He missed like 3 tackles, always like one step behind at this point. The other linebackers, God bless their hearts, they're out there. I didn't think Zaire Barnes was terrible, but like they shouldn't be playing NFL snaps right now. And yes, you've been injured at that position. Tyler Nubin, Javon Hahn, those guys don't hit, bro. They latch on. They latch on, and then they allow other people to come and rally and tackle. There's no violence. And when I go and I watch Mike Vrabel coach team with the Patriots, who's been there for a year now, I watch that team and it's like, dude, they are trying to hit you.
Right. Very good point.
I want a team like that, dude. This team is not that. They don't have the personnel for that. They're not coached like that. They're soft. I hate that. I want a bunch of Brian Burns. I want 22 starting Brian Burns out there. We got freaking like 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe if they're fully healthy. We need more of that level of personnel. And Joe Schoen has not replenished the roster and filled that type of void.
That's a very good point. We are not a violent team, and that's a culture of violence that Vrabel brought in, but it's also, in part due to Elliott Wolf, and I believe their GM is Elliott Wolf, correct? Yeah, and the job that he's done over there with the Patriots to bring in the right personnel, and that's Joe Schoen's job, and he hasn't done a good job of it. And it's not to me about what he's accomplished all in total, or like what he will accomplish in these 4 games against these shit teams. To me, it's about what he brings us moving forward and what direction is he bringing us toward. And that to me is not a good direction right now. I'm not worried about what he's accomplished yet. It's about what's going to happen. Like, so when he sits there and says like, oh, like I've made mistakes, but I've learned from that mistakes. I'm a better GM, he said today, than I was when I first took the job. Great. Obviously that's a good way for you to excuse yourselves of the poor results, and I'm fine with that if it's actually true, but I have no faith that that actually is true and he is a better GM today than he was, because you know what? I mean, yes, the drafts have been better. Obviously it can't get worse than the 2023 draft, and even 2022 is pretty bad when you dump a pick on Evan Neal, but like, and like Azudu, like there's just stuff that isn't working there from that draft class. But at the same time, like there's no faith I have in him at all to be the right guy to do this job moving forward because of what you said. There's no culture of violence. He hasn't replenished positions that need to be replenished at all. He loses Ashawn Robinson and does nothing really, just puts a rookie in there and says this is our solution, right? Or get, guys like Roy Robertson Harris and Nacho and DJ, like players who are okay, but they're not going to replace what Ashawn Robinson does for your defense. And then, like you said, like the safeties he's brought in, Holland and Newbin, those are his big moves, man. When you get rid of McKinney, who did hit, by the way, like McKinney wasn't a big guy, but he hit and he was always there. And then a guy like Julian Love, you're taking away from a position and then you're replenishing it in your own vision. And his vision was Newman and Holland. That's an expensive vision. Newman was a top 35 pick, I believe, which is a crazy, top 40 pick, a crazy big investment. I mean, you could get good linemen at that pick on both sides of the ball, defense and offensive guards and defensive linemen for sure. It happens every class. You can get receivers in that range. You can get a lot of different positions. You're taking a big investment there, and you're going Holland, who got paid a massive contract. Well, these guys need a hit, man, or they need to make plays in the passing game. One of two things need to happen, and neither of those things are happening.
I know, man. And like, look, I always try to it's not like Joe Schoen is just some like imbecile up there, right? Like this is a smart guy who's trying to do a job, right? And I understand from his perspective what he thought Tyler Newbin was going to bring because I talked myself into it. And it was like the Giants had 6 interceptions the previous year. They wanted takeaways. So they got Tyler Newbin and they brought him in here and they were like, we need to force takeaways. We need to force defensive takeaways. And Newbin hasn't done that at all. And one of our biggest issues with Newbin when we drafted him was he was athletically limited. And we kind of we're like, but he had a foot injury. Maybe that's why it ended. We tried to do that whole thing. But look at the tape. The guy is athletically limited. Like the guy he is somebody who needs to be close to the line of scrimmage. And I think he can be a useful player if you put him close to the line of scrimmage, but then that negates his ability to really be that intercepting player that you drafted, right? Because if a running back gets any sort of angle on this guy, they're gone because he does not have the requisite athletic ability to flip his hips and then track somebody down, accelerate, and then locate them, especially backs like Saquon Barkley and some of the other backs that are in this division. So it's a problem, but it seems like, Joe Schoen had a vision and then, maybe it wasn't comprehensive enough because there were enough blights on certain people's profiles that they would pop up in other areas of football. And that's happened with, I think, several different players, but Tyler Newbin is a really great example of that.
Yeah, for sure. And, Joe Schoen pointed to a lot of things during his presser to kind of give himself boost. He pointed to the development of John Michael Schmitz and John Runyon, players who, again, credit to John Michael Schmitz. I do think he's playing the best football of his career, Nick, but I also know that we watched the tape and it didn't really feel like there was any drop off when Schlottman played. That's not a good sign for Schmitz. It's not.
It's not. And I think the Schmitz thing, that's an excellent person to focus on too, because Joe Schoen used him as an example.
Right.
And look, I think John Michael Schmitz is playing solid right now.
Yeah. Best of his career.
Is he playing top 60? I don't know about that, right? No. I think he is an upgrade over Schlottman, but there are issues with Schmitz that came up in this New England game where if the defender gets a quick jump on John Michael Schmitz, they can push him back. There were 2 plays, a passing play and a running play, where that happened, and Schmitz absolutely ruined both of those plays because he didn't have the strength and the ability to quickly anchor once he snaps the football and gets his hands up. And if somebody gets under him, he's done a really good job keeping his center of gravity low, so this doesn't happen often, but it's still something that I see pop up almost every game, once, maybe twice. But other than that, he has been, I think, I don't want to say a quality starter, but he's been solid for you. He's been solid,
which is why Shane is bringing him up. But the point is, we don't want slightly better than Schlottman.
Yes.
That's not Schlottman you can get for free. And Schlottman you can pick up off the free agent wire. Meanwhile, using that top 55 pick on a linebacker that you really need, like Schlesinger, who was taken, 20 picks ahead, but somebody in that range, a Logan Wilson type, or on a defensive tackle that you need. Where was Milton Williams drafted by the Eagles? Certainly after where John Michael Schmitz was drafted, right? Or an interior guard that you need. Or, at that point, you're going doubling on the O-line. That's not the point, I guess. But the point is, you can't have these guys be replaced slightly above replacement level players and then point to them as wins for you as your regime. It sounded like he was doing that. It sounded like he was pointing to Runyon as a free agent win for his regime, which I'm actually somewhat okay with because it's really hard to find quality players in free agency because it's just so depleted at this point. Teams are re-signing their own, but it's not a huge win. And then it's you don't even hear him mention some of the free agents, and maybe that's for negotiating reasons, which I would actually give him credit for. He didn't mention Wandale. He didn't mention Jermaine Illuminor. Maybe that's because they're impending free agents. And
That is why, which was
and that's
why.
fair. And I do want to give him some credit for that. I didn't like that he didn't mention Jermaine Illuminor, but it is what it is. I guess it's for that.
Well,
reason.
he mentioned him once when they were talking about letting Saquon go. Basically, it's like, well, if you sign the running back, he didn't say Barkley's name. He's like, if you sign the running back, then you can't get the tackle and the.
Which, by the way, is also bullshit by Joe Schoen, because none of this is true. And he says something like that. I just want to make this clear for the listeners. When he says if you sign Saquon, we couldn't sign Jermaine anymore. Yeah, that's if you're operating under the sense of no void contracts and you're just operating as the cap is just binary. Like, it's this year, the cap is X amount, you have this amount of space. But the cap is fluid. It's very true and obvious as you see teams like the Eagles and Chiefs continue to make a mockery of the supposed hard salary cap. It is a fluid number, which means what I mean by that is if you have 20 million in cap space in 2025, that's not what you actually have. You have X amount of money down the stretch you can pull from future and create cap space in the now. And that's what the good teams are doing, because they realize, A, the cap is going to go up over the years, and B, if you just add a bunch of void years, you just pay that price at some point down the line when it's not going to be the same price. 20 million in cap space in 2025 is worth way less than 20 million in cap space, or sorry, worth way more than 20 million in cap space in 2030. That's obvious. The cap continues to go up every single year as the NFL gets these deals done with these TV and advertising deals done. So it's not a good way to look at it in my mind. He's looking at it in and that's his MO, right, Nick? Like he said, I'm going to come in, I'm going to clean up the cap. Yeah. And that's fine. He did make mention in the presser of like, we needed to get ourselves in a position where we can spend on a quarterback on a rookie deal, which I did like. And I do really honestly believe, Nick, that Joe Schoen is competent enough. I don't think he's like this big idiot up there who doesn't understand things. Like, I think he's competent enough to, if he does retain the job, Nick, to go into next offseason like, yes, I had this plan. I'm going to clean up our cap. We're going to get Daniel Jones off the books. And then we're going to have the quarterback on the rookie contract, and we will spend and we will try to make those moves. The problem is, will that money be spent on the right players?
Yes, exactly. Will the money be spent on the right players?
Like, can you evaluate talent at all?
And this is where the conversation gets, I think, a little bit deeper into the weeds, deeper into the roots of the New York Giants. And it's like, Joe Schoen is general manager. He has the ultimate decision. Yes. But there's other people in that building, a lot of other people in that building who kind of have this just shield from any actual public criticism. Yes, they'll be publicly criticized, but it won't actually effectuate any change because they share DNA with the ownership of the Giants. Yeah. And that's something that we like. Look, Joe Schoen can go and then we can bring in somebody else, but there are still very high level, very valuable positions, very lucrative positions, positions where these guys are making a ton of money, where there is no chance in freaking hell that with the ineptitude of the New York Giants, that these people would be employed by the New York Giants if their last name did not have the same family lineage as John Mara. That's just objectively true. I'm sorry. And I know you're not really supposed to say that type of stuff, but it is true. And there's no way that those guys would be employed through regime if they were not related to him. And that's a big problem.
Yeah. I mean, there's no argument against that. You could say, well, I mean, the argument is the one that Mara has presented in the past, which is like, you know, he's really revered around the NFL. Ask any of these teams, but like, we don't know that. That's just what John's telling us, and that's not confirmed by any teams or any. You know, the only way we could ever know that is the Giants ever did fire them or move on from them, and then another team picked them up. Which none of this is ever going to happen. These guys have like lifetime jobs, right? Like,
exactly.
Even if they lose a role, like even if John Mara makes a point of like being like, all right, I'm listening to the fans, and he like takes them out of the current role they're in, you know, they're going to have some role, like they're going to be moved to a different position within the, that's just, and like, in some regard, like it's not that I have respect for it, but it's like, I feel like if I ran a franchise, dude, my family members would get jobs. I'm just going to be honest about the situation. Maybe not. The problem is like not these high ranking jobs though. Like you can just put them in a different spot.
And that's 100% fine. Like, look, that's like the Mara family. The Mara family is a very important and significant family in the history of the National Football League. Like Wellington Mara he could be on the Mount Rushmore of establishing the NFL for what it is today. Right. So I want to give that the reverence that
that's
deserves.
Wellington Mara.
John. Of course. No, of course. And John is his son, and that carries over. But my point is, we have been an abject dumpster fire and disaster, and we are directing our ire, I would say rightfully, at coaching staffs and general managers. But we've done that through what, 3-4 cycles now at this point? And there's still the same people who are working in that building when that ineptitude started. who started after the New York Giants were winning Super Bowls under Tom Coughlin. I think and I know a lot of Giant fans are on this, right? Like a lot of they're talking about this and this is something that is beyond our control. But even if Joe Schoen goes, that ineptitude is still in the building. And I'm only calling it like, I don't know. Like that's conjecture, right? I don't know. They could be excellent at their job. I'm judging by the final result. And the final result, ladies and gentlemen, is shit. It's not good. So I have to look at them and the one people who are going to be there no matter what and say, what is going on with this situation too? Because this is a pretty common denominator at this, a pretty consistent common denominator.
Yeah, you're right, Nick. And it's just something that we have to live with as fans. Like that's going to be there regardless. If the Giants turn this around, they'll be there. If the Giants don't turn this around, they'll be there. So we just have to hope that they aren't the determining factor in if this team is successful or not, because if that's the case, we're absolutely screwed. I don't necessarily think they will be. Like, again, like look at how fast some of these teams turn it around, man. The Bears and the Patriots were just total disaster franchises. Like not the Patriots, obviously. I don't mean as like they had Belichick. But the end of the Belichick era was really bad, and that roster was so depleted. So it is still possible to turn this thing around. Just have to get the right people in.
It's the right people, and the general manager is massive in that. And I think the coach is massive in that. And the Giants have the quarterback is massive in that too. But the quarterback needs some infrastructure around him as well, right? Like the quarterback needs to show the traits that we all talk about all the time. And I think Jackson Dart has showed a decent amount of them. Now we have another 4 years after this one of him on a rookie deal, unless the Giants resign him early, which, isn't the worst thing in the world. So that means he's balling out of his mind. And
that means we're winning.
Yeah, exactly. That means we're winning games, right? So that's not the worst thing in the mind. But my point overall is that the Giants, if they get like a head coach like a Ben Johnson, somebody who can not only lead a franchise, be the leader that you need and instill discipline, which it seems like the Giants did not have under Brian Daboll, but also be the play designer and the play caller. If we can be, if we can find a Sean McVay type of coach, right, who the Giants are losing coordinator. When's the last time the Giants lost a coordinator? Right? Like I have friends who are like friends of the Rams, friends of this team, friends of that. And it's like, dude, we get these coordinators and they all just get head coaching jobs. It sucks. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because you guys actually have a head coach and all the other teams are like, yo, let's go find somebody who learned under him. And that's what the Giants might do with Chris Shula, right? Like he's a possible candidate for the New York Giants and he's the defensive coordinator under Sean McVay. But when's the last time the Giants ever lost a freaking coordinator? They almost lost Ben McAdoo. And then we're like, oh no, we gotta force Tom Coughlin into retirement and give Ben McAdoo the head coaching job. We saw how that went.
Yeah, you're right about it. It's a great point by you. Like, when is the last time the Giants lost a coach to another team? And that just doesn't happen for this team but that's, they haven't been good. But even when they have been good, under, the 2022
right?
season.
That would be the last one, I think.
Yeah, right. And that was way long
2008, 2009, something like that.
Yep, to the Rams. And that's a bad sign, obviously, about this team. But
Dan and I are excited to talk about the Big Blue Banter group chat we've got going on with Chat BCC, the group chat platform where you can interact with fans and hosts of your favorite podcasts. We've been using Chat BCC to talk to our listeners about the hottest topics in football and just to kind of shoot the breeze about whatever's on our mind. Every day, one of us is in that chat giving our thoughts and hearing from listeners on their takes on what's going on in football, what's going on with the New York Giants. It's a lot of fun. If you want to come crash our group chat, it's as easy as sending a text. Head to BigBlueBanter.chat in any URL, enter your number, and start chatting with us and the Big Blue Banter faithful. I 100% advocate for Omaha Steaks because Omaha Steaks actually sent me multiple boxes of their delicious product. They took care of me. And look, in this industry, some advertisers don't do that. They'll ask for a personal endorsement that is completely fictitious. I might as well talk to you about Bigfoot or quality New York Giants football because they don't exist. But Omaha Steaks, they take care of their people. They sent me real steaks, perfectly aged for tenderness, hand cut by master butchers, plus chicken and other succulent sustenance. Omaha Steaks, if you're listening, I support you. And the listeners of the Big Blue Banter podcast should too. And you can save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code BANTER at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code BANTER. Thanks again.
Bringing it back to Joe Schoen, again, I don't think he's this like total incompetent human being. And I think you agree with that.
Yeah.
But the results speak for themselves. And it's not just the results. It's like the path I see. Like, I don't feel I haven't felt confident about him, honestly, since Hard Knocks. It's crazy to say, but he just came off. I told you guys this on the pod. He came off to me as such a snake oil used car salesman on that show. And just everything about the way that he went about his business on that show was not good. And it just leads me to believe that his process isn't as good as I had hoped at the time. Because I'll never, like, results are one thing. I do think it's really tough to hit on. And I think he's right when he says, like, I'm not going to bat 1,000 guys. Like, no GM is going to bat 1,000. We're not asking you to bat 1,000, Joe. We're asking you to bat a normal number in the draft, an average number with the average GM drafts, and then hit on other stuff. Like the Rams have 4 UDFAs starting on their defense, and those guys have all been part of their culture and successful players on their defense. We don't get that. We had that in 2022 when we signed Hodgins, right? Like he was that guy. He was the one example of that, but we don't get that often on this team. We're not finding those guys. And as you alluded to earlier, we're not building any kind of culture. We can claim that we're building a culture, smart, tough, dependable. But how are we smart, tough, dependable when Abdul Carter is missing meetings all year, according to a recent report that I saw today that dated back to Dable? And, you know, when he's missing meetings and when you're right, we don't have guys who are hitting hard, really. Like we really don't have a defense that hits hard. It's crazy that point you brought up is really interesting. Like we haven't built that nice. It feels like everybody just goes through the motions on defense, on this defense, and they've just given up on the year. Offense, that's not the case, but it does feel like that on defense.
It's Kayvon, Brian Burns. Look, I don't want to like Bobby Okereke. I think he is. I think he is somebody. He plays hard, right? And I think Bobby Okereke, he squares you up. He's gonna freaking hit you, and it's gonna hurt. But I just think he is a step up. He's a step. It's not that I think he is a step. 2 steps slower than he was his first year here under Wink Martindale. And I think that's
also a different defense. Like that defense was perfect fit for him. That's why they signed him. And it's part of the problem with the NFL. Like when you keep changing out your coaches and schemes, like it's not going to work. You need to be a team that. But I shouldn't say that because the Patriots and Bears have done that and they turned it around. So
and a player like Paulson Adebo, for instance, like he will hit sometimes too. And then there's Drew, and then like everyone else is just like, oh, there's this guy. Let me just grab onto his legs. And then you watch Christian Ellis take out Jackson Dart, and I see Giant fans like flipping out about that. It's like, no, Jackson Dart, go out of bounds.
Yeah, no, that was perfectly a perfectly legal hit.
I would have done the same exact thing. I'd be like, you want to try to get extra yards on me? No. You're still in the field of play. You're trying to get your first down. I'm going to level you.
Defenders live for that. Like I watched that back like 4 or 5 times on the film when we were breaking it down, and like last night, and I was just like, yeah, nope. I saw it from the end zone angle. I saw it from the sideline angle. He is perfectly in bounds. He's idiotically just tiptoeing the sideline, like the Patriots said, when he should have just went out of bounds. But it's not idiot. I get what Dart's doing. Yeah. He wants the first down. He sees the marker. He wants the first down marker. But, you know, as Russ said, it's not third down, dude. You don't have to get it all on this one play. It was second down. But if you're the Patriots guy, you're living for that moment. Like that's going to, like that. I'll tell you why that's such a good play for them and why that moment is so big for them. Because that player who makes that hit then gets to go to the film on the next day, and everyone's like, yeah, dude, they're watching that film back. They're cheering him on. It's building this nice actual culture of violence that you're talking about where, like, you celebrate a play like that. And it's like this kid who's not like a star player. He's not the best athlete out there, but he gets to make that big play. And that's perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that hit. Giants fans who criticize that are actually wrong.
I want to make one thing clear. Like, I respect Jackson Dart's that toughness.
Me too.
Right? I really do respect it. He just needs to be judicious with his, and I think he was in that game.
I think he was in that game. Yeah. I stand by. I think he was right entirely with what he said in the post-game presser.
Yes,
like, guys, what are you talking about? I slid at times. Like, just because that was the one stupid play. But outside of that, I thought he did a good job.
I 100% agree. And I like, dude, I like Jackson Dart in front of the camera. Like, I think he is comporting himself very well with the media questions. And I think he also gives you a little bit of honesty and what he's actually thinking. And I think that shows a level of maturity it shows a level of maturity that I respect. I really do. And I wish the Giants could do better for him right now, but we're not necessarily in that case. But that play, and maybe we'll talk about this on the All 22 podcast, but that play also, it's like Theo Johnson then takes the penalty instead of 3rd and 1, you're in 3rd and 16, then the Giants punt. And then what happens? It's the 95 yard punt return for a touchdown. It's just like little mistakes like that. And I like that Theo sticking up for his core, but you're taking that penalty. It's just that's it
all leads
that way to always find a way to shoot yourself in the foot and to screw up. That has been so consistent with the New York Giants prior to Joe Schoen, right? Prior to Dave Gettleman. And that's my problem, really. It's just they always find a way to screw things up.
Yep, you're right.
Even when you can agree with what they're trying to do, it's like, oh, well, they're going to screw it up, and they do it. And I hate that loser defeatist mentality, but it's difficult for fans not to have that right now because the Giants have not provided you any recourse, right? That's all they've given you is loser and defeatism.
Yeah, you're right about that. And then as far as just pulling it back to Joe Schoen, we heard a lot of what he did last year's presser, right? You know, last year he used some bullshit about how the Giants were in a lot of one-score games as like a reason to believe in them, which was total crap because a lot of those were like they scored in garbage time to make it a one-score game. They weren't actually in those games. Did the same thing in this presser, right? He pointed to our offense really taking a step forward. We're 10th in total yards before the Patriots game. Now we're 14th. Well, the Giants didn't have their bye week yet, so they played one more game than every team. You can't use total yards. It's a very stupid, idiotic thing to use. The offense has obviously taken a step forward, but you don't need to use these dumbass stats to try to prove it that are just
He's
like
trying to be slick,
cherry picked. But like,
slick
yeah,
Joe.
it just he's trying to be slick, but it's like, no, the fans can see through this at this point. Like, we are not the fan base to try to get this through. We've been through a lot as a fan base. We're wildly tuned in. People are locked in on Twitter. Like, they're just attacking everybody, the family, the GM, like everyone knows everything about this team. So you're not going to get that through, Giants fans. That'll work on a Browns or Bengals type franchise. I don't even know, but like, it ain't going to work here, Joe. And like, people were on tune with that. But you know, the other main takeaway for me, Nick, with this was, from my opinion of his presser, I think these final 4 games may save his job based on what Ian O'Connor said, if they go 3-1 down the stretch or 4-0 and beat the Cowboys. But I don't think it's going to save Kafka or give Kafka any chance.
No.
From my evaluation of what Joe Schoen said, I think that Kafka has no real opportunity to be the head coach. Just some of the things Joe Schoen said about we're getting a lot of calls from teams. People want to be the coach. You know, I just don't think it's going to be Kafka.
No, not at this point. If he won, if the Giants did win 4 games, maybe with the already the decision making that it seems like the Giants are operating with him, that could certainly help him. But I tend to agree. I mean, he's like, yeah, we're getting a lot of calls. That's like the last thing Joe Schoen said before he scurried off.
Right.
And, you know, right when he got out of the frame of the camera, he was probably like, holy shit. Yeah. He's like, thank God that's over with. Did I put my foot in my mouth? I don't know. Yeah, but I tend to agree. I want, like, dude, you've talked about it. Like, the Giants are a desirable job. Like, if this was
the most desirable job,
if this was the last coaching cycle, the Giants would probably be picking between Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel and these top level, and not Arthur Smith and Matt Nagy, right? But this coaching cycle doesn't seem as strong there. But
no, we didn't get lucky with that. We got very unlucky with that. And honestly, like, it would be fun because, you know, you'd be seeing, you know, when I went off with like probably 30,000 on a 3 tweet per day idiocy of Drake May during the 2024 draft cycle. Drake May this, Drake May that, just cutting up clips just to put him on Twitter. Look how good this guy is. The Giants need this guy. Trade up for him. I would be doing the same thing with probably Ben Johnson, honestly. Though Vrabel, it would have been interesting. There would have been a huge debate with Giants fans, Vrabel or Ben Johnson. I think I would have landed on Ben, and I know a lot of people wouldn't be a fan of that.
I think I would have landed on Ben as well.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. I know we're weird. That's an unpopular opinion. Most people, but you got to take Vrabel. He's the leader of men, and I get that too. There's a great case for Vrabel too, but I would love to see Jackson Dart with Ben Johnson.
Dude, that's like eating chicken franchise, or chicken marsala, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't think you can go wrong.
And now we know after the fact too that Ben looks like a pretty good leader of men, and is getting his team to win with a much worse. Now, I don't want to say a much worse roster than the Patriots, but
yeah, I wouldn't say that.
No, I wouldn't say that. But probably similar in that regard. But for me, it's like thinking of Jackson Dart with Ben Johnson and the way that he sees offense, and then the run game with Scadaboo. Like,
yeah. And also, man, and we don't have to go too much on a Ben Johnson tangent here, but what he's doing with Caleb Williams right now, like, Caleb Williams had a lot of issues last season.
Still does.
Yeah. And he still does, but you still see that like high level play from Caleb. And like, whenever Caleb rolls out and he throws the ball like 65 yards downfield effortlessly, you're like, yeah, that's why he was the number 1 overall pick. Like, that's why we all kind of fell in love with Caleb Williams, but he's getting him to play within structure. And I think Jackson Dart already does that a little bit better than Caleb Williams did coming into the NFL. So like and I don't think Jackson has near the arm talent that Caleb Williams has. I don't want to or at least specifically throwing off platform and just like the distance that Caleb Williams really gets on the football.
No, let's just back it. You don't have to qualify that. He doesn't have near the arm talent of Caleb Williams. If he did, Caleb Williams wouldn't be drafted number 1 overall.
But one thing I will say though is, because arm talent is comprehensive, I do think Caleb sometimes drives it a little
Oh
bit.
yeah, no, he can't. He hasn't been until
Yeah.
last game with the Eagles. He hasn't done a good job of changing the trajectory.
Whereas Jackson Dart, I think, does a really good job changing trajectory. If we're talking about distance, yes, it's Caleb, and there's no doubt. But
Not just distance, but like even just like throwing a dig route. I'd rather Caleb rifle that dig route in than whatever.
I mean, it's the velocity that Caleb Williams gets, and he's not even a big guy, so it's like one of those things. Like I would love to understand the mechanics, the kinesiology or whatever behind how he
Rodgers is
generates
not a
that
big
much
guy,
force.
right? And he has the best arm we've ever seen from that standpoint.
Dude, Aaron Rodgers.
Or Marino
Aaron
and
Rodgers is 42 years old right now, 43, is he? Whatever he is. And he's still like, he'll have throws where I'm like, bro, what the hell? How'd that come off your arm, bro?
It's hard to imagine. And same thing for Marino. These weren't huge guys. Elway wasn't, I mean, Elway was a big guy, but Elway wasn't the biggest guy ever in the world. Allen obviously is a big guy. But yeah, anyway, just with the Ben Johnson thing and with the Giants, hopefully the Giants can find their own Ben Johnson. It's not a guarantee that there isn't one, right? Like it could be Kubiak, could be any of these guys. I don't think that's the direction they're going, Nick. I think there's a good chance. My guess right now is the Giants are going to have Mike Tomlin as their head coach next year. I think he's going to get fired by the Steelers, not because the Steelers are the type of team that does that, but because I think they're going to lose down the stretch a lot. And I think the fans have there were fire Tomlin chants last game in Pittsburgh.
I would take Mike Tomlin.
I know I'm not a big Tomlin guy. I'm trying to warm up to it. It's not for me. I have a lot of issues with Tomlin. I think he's horrific when it comes to in-game fourth down decisions. He's the worst. As actually the worst in the NFL by the numbers.
So I haven't studied any of that. For me, it's much more maybe a little bit more
culture.
It's superficial. Like again, I haven't like dug deep into it. It's much. I trust him to build the culture that I think breeds winning, because we've seen that over like the last 20 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now,
sort of. It depends what you mean by winning. They don't lose, but they don't really win anything. But they don't lose.
And look, I will take that. And look, if he were, say Mike McDaniel got fired from
I don't believe that he would do that though. Yeah.
But my overall point is it's kind of independent of who it is. If he brings in the right people, the right person, right?
I don't believe he will
to lead the offense, and that could be your point of contention, right? Like
that's my main point of contention,
and that's a valuable one.
Been Matt Canada, Arthur Smith.
Yeah, dude.
He's done a really bad job of coordinators. They've been fired. They've been horrific. They can't do anything. Matt Canada, Arthur Smith, like these are guys that will ruin Jackson Dart, literally ruin him.
I'll say this, dude. I've been around a lot of head coaches, a lot of them, right? Like I've interned at the Senior Bowl. I've been in the NFL world for a little bit now. He has massive aura, and I don't know how far that goes, but like you can sense it where like most head coaches do, right? But it's different with Mike Tomlin, and I don't think the Giants have had a coach like that since Tom Coughlin, dude. And I think
that's
that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, and that's the reason to potentially like him. And I'm trying to warm up to it for those reasons, for the culture, for everything like that. It's just a massive concern to me that he's brought in some horrific offensive coordinators. What would that mean for Jackson Dart? That scares the hell out of me. Like like with Tomlin, I'm more interested in him because of the culture stuff than I am because he's won 9 games or whatever it is. Every year he wins 9 games because like, I just think all the winning stuff with the coaches is mostly bullshit because in general, GMs play a big role in if you win or lose. And the Steelers have had a really good GM in there for years and a really good program that continues to replenish the lines on both sides of the ball. They had a small stretch of bad O-line play. They've gone O-line with first round picks, bang, bang, bang. And they've like kind of got it back to decent. They'll just continue that. D-line, they never let get bad. They always replenish their D-line. And generally speaking, they've done an amazing job locating wide receivers until recently. They've done an amazing job locating wide receivers in the late rounds. Mike Wallace, those guys over the years, plenty Antonio, Juju, like over the years, they've done a good job of that. So, am I going to credit him for all those wins? No, but he does deserve some credit. He built the culture, right? And so I want to warm up to Tomlin because I do think there's a good chance he could be the Giants head coach. So I just have a feeling they're looking for that type of coach, like a former guy who's done it and, the culture builder. It scares me when his coordinators are Matt Canada and Arthur Smith and like what that could mean for Dart. And it's a combo of that. The type of team he wants to win these 13-10 type games, which I don't like that for the Dart. I don't like that mindset for Dart. And then also just the fourth down decisions are just horrific with him. Just absolutely horrific. He's the most cowardly coach in the NFL over the course of 5 years on fourth downs. And I don't love living that life of just like we're punting on these terrible spots. We're 4th and 2 on the 41 and we're punting and with Dart at quarter. Like we have to have faith in Dart to convert these fourth downs, man. Like you got to try to win the games in my mind. You don't want to play to not lose. It's not something I like, but he's won games sort of like, right? Like he's won it. He's not lost. He wins to get to 9 or 8, but then they do nothing in the playoffs. But he wins, but they
I mean,
can't
he has
win
a Super Bowl though. I mean, I know it
with
was like
Roth, with Prime Roth.
Yeah,
That's
of
not a super.
course.
That's not. Yeah, that's.
I mean,
not
it
him.
still is though, dude. It still
And
is. Like,
McCarthy has a Super Bowl too with Prime
yeah,
Rodgers, right?
yeah,
Like,
and we
I mean, like,
and we give that to McCarthy. We do.
I guess, yeah.
And I think there is a difference between Tomlin and McCarthy. I think Tomlin is more.
I strongly prefer Tomlin too.
Yeah, I strongly prefer Tomlin to any of the people that we've discussed. Other than and like I'll say this, the unknown I'm still intrigued by, and that includes Kubiak and Shula. But if you're saying Tomlin or Arthur Smith, who's his current
the
offensive
retreads,
coordinator,
yeah, Tomlin's
or Matt Nagy, yeah, and if they want to retread, that is definitely the best of the bunch. It would be Mike Tomlin.
Tomlin versus McCarthy is interesting to me because I definitely think Tomlin's a much better coach, but I have a little bit more faith in McCarthy for Dart. Like Tomlin for Dart is a big concern for me.
Well, again, though, it all depends on who you're bringing in. Like let's say,
right, but he hasn't done a good job of that.
Let's say this. Mike Kafka stays as OC under Mike Tomlin.
It's okay.
I'm fine with that. If the rot in that locker room hasn't poisoned the idea of what Mike Kafka is to the players.
Right.
And I don't really know that, right? Because it very well might be. Like Kafka seems like a very reserved, very smart guy. But like you see him in front of the press, it's like, dude, he's not
presser after the Patriots.
He's not a head coach. Doesn't seem like, dude, that was crazy. That press conference, I was kind of like, Mike, please stop. Cause I like Mike Kafka, right? He seems like a nice guy. Same. I like when he went out and he did the Twitter spaces with us. Like, I thought that was really a cool thing he didn't need to do. Right. So, but when he goes up there and he's just like, yeah, it was my decision. And then all I see is like Duggan and Leonard and everyone just like taking their swords out. And they're like, I'm going to get this. And they asked him like 12 times. He's like, and he tried lying too. He tried lying initially. Like, listen to that. And he was like, well, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he tried to like obfuscate what actually happened. And everyone's like,
it's a tough spot for these coaches. Yeah.
Very tough. I don't envy it. I don't. But to bring this full circle, Tomlin, this is not happening under Tomlin. Right. And this isn't Kafka's fault. I want to make that clear. This is Dable's fault. But that's not happening under Mike Tomlin. No one's doing
Tomlin. I want to warm up to Tomlin. I really do, because there are a lot of positives to bringing in a guy like Mike Tomlin. It's just I have so much trouble getting over the hurdle of who his OCs were, what it means for Dart. If the whole idea of getting to this 8-9 win type culture that Tomlin can get them to is worth it if it means we lose Dart, like the development of Dart. And then finally, like the way he coaches football, I'm not a huge fan of. I know it works or it has worked.
I wonder if he does that because they have such a reliable defense for so long.
I know, but I never believe in that as a reason to do that personally. I think that's a very bad way to look at it. I think you got to play to win. You got to be aggressive. Like, I know some people have a problem with it. Obviously, you don't want to go to Dan Campbell's extent with it. That's probably taking it a little too far. Though I don't even know if it is. The Lions have won a lot of games until this year with that strategy. They just went to a conference the semifinals, and the year before was the conference championship with that strategy. So, like, it's tough. But again, like, mostly it's about the offensive coordinators he's had and what it can mean for Dart, because I can deal with him punting a lot on these 4th and 1 situations if he's built to finally a culture of violence and a culture of accountability, which we need. So I got to warm up to Tomlin. I know I have to warm up to it because I think the Steelers could very likely fire him. Just not even fired, just be like, it's time to move on type of thing.
Yeah. Like an Andy Reid with the Eagles type thing.
Exactly. And then B, if that happens, I think he's like number 1 for Mara. I think it's like him and then everyone else, because Mara and Rooney's have a relationship. Those two families, they're going to want that exact type of thing that he can bring. So I got to warm up to that idea for sure. And then hopefully he can just right the wrongs he's done at OC, because I don't like Arthur Smith. I don't like Matt Canada. And I don't want these idiots coaching Jackson Dart, to be quite frank.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a lot of valid points. That's why I like the whole Kafka thing. If Kafka has that type of relationship with Dart, which we don't really know the full extent of that. Like, we knew that like Dable and Dart, they were like this, they were tight, but like you don't really hear that with Kafka. Kafka is his offensive coordinator throughout his time, and we've seen the trajectory and the development of Jackson Dart in his rookie season, and Kafka obviously has an influence on that, as did Dable. So I think like, if Kafka is open to staying and the Giants are willing to keep him, and that could be a solution that would make the Mike Tomlin hire more palatable to maybe someone like you. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, it's somewhat better with Kafka. I'm kind of moving on from the idea of Kafka personally. Like, I want like a McVay tree coordinator or something like that to or a Kubiak type mind for him. But It'd be better. It'd be better than like if Tomlin came over here and was like, I'm bringing Arthur Smith with me to coordinate this offense. That would scare the fuck out of me, honestly. I don't want Arthur Smith getting anywhere near Jackson Dart, anywhere near the type. Like that would be nightmare. But, I got to be open to it, Nick, because he may be not only the Giants' choice, but he may be a better option than I want to give him credit for, obviously. Again, though, I just want to make it clear in my mind, and I'll never change my mind on this, I don't want to evaluate coaches on their win-loss records because that's idiotic when we know how important the GM is to winning and losing football games. And Steelers have had a great GM in there, and they've done great with their draft picks, and they've done great with their roster management in general throughout their years. So it is what it is. Tomlin obviously built the culture, though, so I like that about him. And like you said, he's got an aura. He's a no-nonsense guy. Will probably be a more physical team. Do you really love Tomlin's defense, though, either, like schematically? I see all these clips of people posting online, like, they got him again, like, with the same defense that he ran last week, and they got him again for a big play. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I haven't sat there and, like, watched.
True. It's just clips,
tape.
But yeah, the Steelers defense hasn't been good this year, but it is what it is. It's been good in the past, so. All right. It's a lot on Mike Kafka. On Joe Schoen's presser today. Mike Kafka's probably gone, but we'll see. We'll see what happens down the stretch run, ladies and gentlemen. We don't know. It's all a guessing game at this point, but not a good presser for Joe Schoen. I think we can all agree on that he understood the question. At least he got that right. All right. Thank you so much for Thank you so much for tuning into Big Blue Banter. More content coming your way. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. We got to over 12K on YouTube, which is nice. Let's keep bumping that number up. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.